This is our overview of Chapter 20 from the book series The Wars of Light and Darkness. The chapter's called The Eschatological War of the Kittim Begins, and wow, does it live up to the name. We're going to be looking at the explosive events that kicked off one of the most famous rebellions in history, the Great Jewish Revolt against the Roman Empire. So here's what we're going to cover. First, we'll look at the deep divisions within Judean society itself. Then we'll see exactly what lit the fuse and started the war. We're going to talk about a jaw-dropping Roman defeat, uncover a huge historical controversy, and finally, see how the stage was set for the massive, brutal conflict that came next. Before we can even talk about the Romans, we have to understand what was going on inside Judea. This wasn't just a simple rebellion against a foreign empire. No, this was basically a civil war just waiting to happen, a bitter conflict simmering right under the surface. Now, this is where it gets really interesting. The source material, drawing on the Dead Sea Scrolls, splits society into these two totally opposite groups. On one side, you've got the Sons of Darkness. That's the pro-Roman establishment, the ruling priests, the royals, the whole shebang. And on the other side, the Sons of Light, the anti-Roman revolutionaries, the Zealots, backed by the ordinary people who were just desperate for a change. This phrase from one of the Dead Sea Scrolls, the Isaiah Pesher, just says it all, doesn't it? It's how the revolutionaries saw the ruling elite in Jerusalem. Not as leaders, but as arrogant men, collaborators who were in bed with the enemy. You can just feel the contempt in those words. And you have to understand this term, Kittim. It's the code word used in the scrolls for the Roman Empire. For the Sons of Light, this wasn't just some political squabble. It was a prophesied apocalyptic showdown, the War of the Kittim, the final epic battle against the forces of darkness. So, you have this powder keg of a society. What was the spark that finally lit the fuse? Well, it wasn't just one thing. It was really two key events that made the whole situation explode. The first spark was an act of pure defiance. They stopped the daily sacrifice for the Roman emperor in the Jerusalem temple. I mean, that was a massive religious and political slap in the face to Rome. The second spark? A brutal, horrific massacre in the city of Caesarea that sent shockwaves through the entire nation. The scale of the violence is just staggering. The historian Josephus says 20,000 Jews were killed in a single hour. Just let that sink in. This act of brutality enraged people, and it immediately set off a chain reaction of bloody revenge attacks across the region. There was no turning back now. Of course, Rome was not going to let this rebellion go unanswered. They sent in the big guns. The entire 12th Legion, a massive, experienced army, marched down from Syria under a general named Cestius Gallus. Their mission was simple and brutal: crush this revolt and make an example out of Jerusalem. But, and this is a huge but, the Roman response did not go according to plan. In fact, what happened next was an absolute military disaster for the empire and a stunning, almost unbelievable victory for the Jewish rebels. The rebel fighters used this absolutely brilliant strategy. They basically lured the Romans into a trap. They harassed them on the way up to Jerusalem, let the Roman army exhaust itself trying to break through the city walls, and then, when the Romans finally gave up and started to retreat, the rebels funneled them right back into the narrow, steep-walled pass of Beth Horon. It was a perfect kill box. Just try to picture the scene. These proud Roman legionaries, trapped in a narrow pass with nowhere to run, being picked apart by fighters attacking from the high ground. All their famous discipline, all their heavy armor, it was useless. They were completely routed. The victory was total. The Romans lost thousands of men. And in the ultimate humiliation for a legion, their sacred eagle standard was captured. For the Jewish forces, this was huge. Not only was it an incredible morale boost, but they captured a ton of Roman war machines, catapults, ballistae, giving them the very weapons their enemy used. So, the Romans have been defeated. A power vacuum opens up. The Zealots are the heroes of the day. But the question of who actually took control of the war effort, well, that reveals what the author of our source material calls the Great Deception. So you'd think the guys who just wiped out a Roman legion would be put in charge, right? The victorious Zealot commanders? Well, according to Josephus, the historian who wrote the main account of all this, something very, very strange happened next. And here is the core argument of the chapter. According to Josephus, a council in Jerusalem appointed him and other members of the pro-Roman elite to lead the war. But the author of The Wars of Light and Darkness says, hold on, that makes zero sense. The author's interpretation is that these men, the sons of darkness, were actually sent to sabotage the revolt from the inside. Our source basically argues that Josephus was a spin doctor. Writing for a Roman audience after the war was over, he had to invent this story to save his own skin. He needed to paint himself as a patriot sent by a patriotic council when, the author argues, he was really an agent of the pro-Roman faction sent to undermine the whole rebellion. And here's the kicker. This is presented as the ultimate proof. According to the source, Josephus himself admitted in a later book, his autobiography, that his real mission was never to fight the Romans. It was to convince the revolutionaries to surrender. This completely flips the official history of the war on its head. Okay, so let's pull back and look at the big picture. After this miraculous victory and all this political scheming, where did that actually leave the Jewish rebellion? So, on one hand, the Sons of Light had won a spectacular battle. They were in control of Jerusalem and the temple. But the internal war for the soul of the nation was nowhere near over. The pro-Roman Sons of Darkness were still plotting in the shadows, and everybody knew Rome was coming back, and this time they'd be coming back for blood. A much bigger storm was gathering on the horizon. And this really sets up the devastating conflict that's about to unfold. It leaves us with this one critical question. You can win a battle against an outside enemy, but can a rebellion ever truly succeed when it's fighting a war on two fronts, one against a global superpower and another against itself? Hey, if you found this breakdown interesting, please go ahead and like and subscribe for more. And for more information, or if you want to purchase the full book, you can find the link for that right in the description below. Thanks for watching.